Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and what you see here is my system of mixed red worms. It's a mix of red wigglers, European night crawlers, and blue worms, otherwise known as the Uncle Jim's mix. The worms have been in this system here, this VermiBag Tote, for 239 days now, and during their first 218 days here in the bag, they got 22 feedings, and that 22nd feeding went in 21 days ago, 3 weeks ago, and I've not checked in on this system at all, really. I've peeked in underneath, I've came in and opened the zipper partially and peeked inside. Usually see worms hanging out on the top surface, but other than that, I'm curious to see how they're coming along. And I'm also curious to see if the system's still kind of damp even after being removed from the plastic tub and put into its frame that way. I've been wondering if maybe leaving it unzipped and open on top like you see a bunch of my other systems set up that way to just air dry and ventilate. That might be the way we leave that system there today too. So since it's just foraging, it's really just to see how moisture is. Do we want to unzip the top? Do we want to till it around? I think we will till it around. That always helps with drying too. So let's get it up onto the bench and see how things look. Now, even though the system has this big vented top here, it's a screen, you can kind of see through it even if there's bright enough light. Somehow it just doesn't seem to allow for a lot of airflow, or at least that's what it seems like to me. Watch it turn out that I'm completely wrong and that the system's actually bone dry and in need of extra moisture. Well, I don't know. I really don't know what to expect because it was always over there on the dark edge of the wormery over on the shelf where I could hardly see anyway. And I would always only unzip a piece of the system to only get a slight peek underneath the covers. So I never really got a very good view. One thing I'm definitely seeing here is a whole bunch of springtails really enjoying whatever's going on here. And we got worms hanging out here and there on the surface as well. And a lot of times I'll sort of try to collect up all the big chunk materials that seem to float out on the top surface. Gives us somewhat better idea of how things are looking in here, a better view of what the castings in here look like. Or maybe sometimes if the material in the bin might have gotten a bit too damp, then it might be clumpy, and maybe what we're looking for is just a general overall consistency. Is it lumpy, clumpy? Is it flowing and crumbly? I think the one thing is for certain is that it's got probably a bit too much moisture still, otherwise we wouldn't see all these springtails all over the place. And they are all over the place. Not that there's a real big problem with that, but I can feel dry material along the edges that were out on the surface, and for whatever reason it seems like that's actually where I'm finding a good number of the springtails anyway. I thought it was moisture that they went after, but I'm not that familiar with having springtails. Usually I don't see them at all or hardly, but for whatever reason they seem quite abundant here. All this damp stuff over here too, you know. Some of it is stuff like this pit, some sort of a pit. It's not going to get broken down, not in this bin, and probably not for a long time. I'm just going to toss it out. But all this other stuff here, you know, I'm inclined just to sort of blend it in to the material, get it sunken down amongst some of the more damp stuff down low. Otherwise, being dry like that pretty much guarantees it's not going to get any worm activity. The material's got a good moisture content, luckily. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I thought it would still be perhaps a little bit too damp, which was my impression of where things were in here up until, I guess, just now. But at this point, I'm starting to get the sense that the material in this system is pretty good. Might not even want to see it dry too much more. Or maybe just a little bit more, at least to the point where we see no more springtails, or at least fewer of them. Here too, I'm seeing a good bit of fairly dry stuff over here. I guess anytime I find a large chunk piece too, I'm attempting to break it up here and there, but it's in general it's all really nice stuff. It's all crumbly. I'm just blending in the more dry stuff with the more damp stuff. And I guess all this stuff that was sort of floating out on the surface and could probably benefit from being a little bit more damp, we'll get that stuff submerged. It too will help absorb some of the moisture from the surrounding materials, further drying the overall contents. Just so weird. I'm just wondering what it is about this system that the springtails like so much. Because, I mean, knock on wood, I don't really see them elsewhere. Although that could change quickly, who knows? Maybe that'll be my next cross to bear, figuring out how to get rid of too many springtails in my systems. But no, I think this is fine. I don't think it's too many. There's just a little bit of a bloom, if you will, of them. But I think as things continue to dry in here, their numbers will diminish, and I think the motivation for the worms to find something different will continue to increase. Because, I mean, there's still stuff in here that they can keep nibbling on. This is like the stem of a banana. You can see a lot of its fibers falling off, but part of its inside is still pretty much intact. It just snapped in half between my fingers, too. There's other things in here, too. All these little crumbly balls. Every time I break one of those apart, it's really held together by the dampness and moisture. So moisture-wise, leftovers, little bits of this, little bits of that. These worms are going to be just fine for a little while longer, I think. So we'll just go back to covering just the way it was. I didn't know what to expect. I thought if a little bit more enhanced drying was going to be the right thing for this system, then we could just leave it open like this. But I'd rather keep it zipped up if I can. And I think that since I can, I will. So that's it for our check-in now. Nice little aeration of the material. The worms have been now foraging for 3 weeks. And at some point, I might want to start considering about getting the worms out of here, relocated, harvesting the castings, and, you know, moving on. Getting this system retired for the most part, and looking ahead for bigger and brighter things for the wormies in the system. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.